My name is Denitha Breau, and I'm here with Harry Cayton. Harry and I are going to talk to you about some leadership skills, hopefully, in our 10 minutes together. Harry, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to get right into the questions so we can make the most of our time. Harry, you know, you've had a distinguished career in governance and regulation. Looking at leadership, can you define leadership at different levels of organization, especially when it comes to the idea of managing up? Take us through that.
I think that there are many different styles of leadership, and that good leaders are actually able to switch between styles depending on the circumstances. You can have leaders who are decisive, leaders who are emotionally intelligent, leaders who are charismatic. I think that we should, as leaders, we should learn to change our style depending on the circumstances and the problem that we're trying to deal with. And I think one of the interesting things about leaders as well, there are people I call occasional leaders, so people who step up when there's a problem. They may not be officially in a leadership role, but when there's a challenge and when maybe another leader is unwell or not present, there are always people who show the leadership ability to step up and solve a problem. So I don't think there's a single thing that I would call leadership. I think there are ways of leading and different skills, different styles, and the best leaders can choose between them appropriately.
Thank you. And that really resonates with me because I really believe in the fact that certain situations necessitate evaluation.
Yeah.
Like it's not a one size fits all.
Exactly.
And it's not a disservice to stop and think, well, what part of my personality or leadership skills needs to deal with this situation?
You're right. For instance, there are moments when assertive leadership, which can fall into bullying, is absolutely the wrong approach. You need to stop, you need to sit back, you need to listen, you need to work with colleagues. There are other times when in a crisis where assertive leadership is the right approach. So it's a matter of judgment and a matter of style, I think.
And I imagine that experience sort of teaches you as you test out these different methods. And perhaps I can speak for myself when one thing is more successful than the other. And then you sort of go back to the drawing board and you test out another technique.
And of course, a lot of it is, certainly in my case, not really deliberate. You know, it's just how people function and how they behave. And I think good leaders are themselves people that other people want to follow. And I don't really believe in that argument that sometimes people put that everyone's a leader. I don't see how everyone can be a leader because leaders need followers.
Yeah.
So they can't all be leaders at the same time. So I think we need, and you and I have talked about this before, you need also to be able to manage upwards. You need to be able to manage your own leader in order to help them get the best out of you.
Absolutely. It's really important. And I can tell you in my day job, my everyday job, I know there's certain individuals that are really good about setting up an environment where we can move things along. And that managing up piece is really very important. Yeah. Can you sort of, when people are thinking about how best to do it without being controlling, can you talk us through what that would look like practically?
Well, I think we think of management always top down. And I think we should think of management as a two-way exercise. So again, good managers are encouraging the people they manage to be open and constructive and positive about issues and problems. If people are not open about problems, then it's bad for bad for management. And so being open is one way of ensuring that your manager knows what your issues are and can help you resolve them. And so I see it as a dialogue. And it's a matter of perhaps observing your manager. My colleagues used to say to me, you're absolutely useless late in the afternoon. We know not to bother you with discussion issues late in the afternoon because you'll be focused on getting the day's work finished. You're rather impatient.
Right.
It's not a good time to try and talk to you. Well, that's an insight. Probably
Knowledge.
helped me change my behavior slightly.
Yeah.
But it also helped them very much to get the best out of me for themselves.
No, and I like the proactive approach of dealing with watching the individual you work with and sort of dealing with what's presented in front of you. I think that's great. I think when we think about that, though, trust is crucial in any professional relationships. What are your tips for building and maintaining trust, especially when you're managing up in these types of situations?
I mean, honesty, not dodging problems, not overreacting to criticism. I think being consistent so that people know your approach is the same with everybody, and that you're reliable in your decision making, that you don't constantly change your mind. I mean, a good decision is always one that has been properly consulted on, all voices heard, but then a decision absolutely made and not gone back on.
Right.
And so people who are constantly changing their minds are very difficult to work with.
This is true.
And you're a chief executive. You have to manage your board as well. So you've got to manage upwards with your chair and with the whole board or council. These are quite difficult things to do, particularly when those people are changing quite frequently as well.
You really have to spend time learning and trying to observe people's personalities.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes what happens is that desire for consistency, we lose ourselves in it. And consistency doesn't mean that you have to treat everybody exactly the same. There is an approach where you can be, slightly different depending on the type of individual that you're dealing with, where you're consistently delivering the message, but maybe a little bit more effectively. I know at least with my board, I do try to do that.
I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's more of an orchestra than a choir.
Yeah.
And you don't want an orchestra that consists entirely of violins or entirely of oboes. You need all the different instruments, and you need to help the different people to contribute what they can contribute. Absolutely. So you're the conductor of an orchestra, and that's challenging, but that's how you get good music.
And it is challenging when you're trying to build trust with multiple people at the same time. And I suppose even in an organization, when you're trying to build trust with your direct superiors, when you're talking about having direct conversations, I think as humans broadly, we struggle with that. Nobody really wants to say the thing that needs to be said. People try to couch it in different ways.
They do.
But I have to say, in my experience, and I wonder for yours as well, every time I've sort of done the difficult thing and had a direct conversation, the outcomes have been generally positive. People appreciate that you didn't dance around the topic.
I think that's absolutely right. People want frankness, and they want to have the opportunity to say what they really feel. And you need, as a manager, to listen to that and make sure that you are really understanding their position and their perspective. But the other thing that's important, I think, for managers is not to take on the problem, but to help the other person to solve it for themselves.
I think that's a really, really good tip, and one that's difficult if you're a problem solver by nature.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what that would look like in the last minute that we have together?
Well, I can remember, I'll just give one quick example. I can remember a member of staff who ex-member of my staff who came back and said she needed some monitoring from me. And in her new organization, she said, they never really listen to me. I prepare all this work, and as soon as I start presenting it, they start talking over the top of me and talking about something else. And I had a couple of sessions with her, and I said, have you noticed that you start every presentation with the word, I'm sorry? That's quite a Canadian thing to do.
It is. I'm personally taking some of this feedback
so
back.
She started I'm sorry, but I'm sorry I'm going to talk about. I'm sorry. And it's a reflex. I said, stop it. Just stop saying I'm sorry, because you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
She came back a month later. She said, I don't need to come and see you anymore because it worked.
That's excellent.
And I'm not sorry anymore.
I think it's a good reminder to take space. And with that, I want to thank you very much, Harry, for having this conversation with us. I could have done this for another 10 more minutes, if not the whole hour, but we're limited by time. And I hope you look forward to our next CNAR TV.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Harry.